listening to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation? There's a COE. You caught her red-handed inside of the show, and that is because we are coming to you live on Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. But being part of the crazy Waldman family, we flew to Chicago, and I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere inside the Windy City or thereabouts, and it was not letting me go live, although my Wi-Fi appears to be great. Our third guest was having a problem, and it should be no surprise to anyone that a tornado touched down here yesterday, and they're expecting more bad weather. So more than likely, the Waldmans, Carm, kids, Joel, COE, everyone will be hunkering down in a basement somewhere in the middle of Illinois tonight, because that's the way we roll. Wherever disaster strikes, we are there. But it's a good thing I've got guys who know how to mitigate all this in Robin Dreek and Jeff Wood. But before we get there, on a serious note, there was obviously an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump less than 48 hours ago. I guess now it is about 48 hours and change. And that, of course, happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, a rural section of PA out towards Pittsburgh. Both President Biden and former President Trump are now calling for unity. The RNC convention is underway as well. And we're going to discuss all the craziness over the last 48 plus hours, what went wrong. And we're going to hear from the best panel, not just in all of true crime, but the best panel discussing this case. You're not going to be able to go to the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the ABC News, none of these places anymore, because you're going to get better information here. No more soundbite land. Traditional media is dead, and new media is where it is at. So without further ado, Craig, are you hearing me now?
I am, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Craig Fraser is not just any person. He has protected every president this country has had, from President Ford through President Biden, most as former presidents, but every active president from President George Bush Jr. onward. He's traveled with protectees of the Secret Service to dozens of countries and in all 50 states, and protected dozens of presidents of foreign countries while visiting the United States. He was a senior special agent with the Secret Service from 2001 to 2023 with that agency, and he started his career off as a soldier in the United States Army. Thank you for your service, Craig.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Next up, top of the screen, Robin Dreek. He's a best-selling author. He's written, I think this is his fourth book. I'm going to have him tell you the title in a second. It's coming out soon. He's a professional speaker. He's a trainer, an executive coach, a podcast host, a Marine Corps officer. This guy does more before 5 a.m. than you've done in your entire lives on a given day. He is a retired FBI special agent, chief of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. Again, chief of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program with the FBI. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Wood, who is a familiar face on this show. He's a retired FBI special agent out of Boston. He focused on gangs and gang violence. And then I learned something about Jeff that I didn't know. He was with the DSS. Is that the Secret Service, Jeff?
The Diplomatic Security Service. So it's for the Department of State. Yep. And we protect people at the Secretary of State level. As the Secret Service does presidents, we do the level of the Secretary of State and ambassadors.
Yeah. By the way, if you really want to feel emasculated, you start a podcast and then you interview guys like this day in and day out after an attempted assassination. And I feel like a toddler. But that's okay. That's my own insecurity, but I'll make it through this show. Don't worry. I told everybody to make up for my lack of manhood. I bought a Ford Bronco after my wife drowned our minivan in the last round of storms. So anyway, little out of my mind today with the travel, and we are going to get back onto the grind. But something I did not know about Jeff Wood, I knew this. Both his parents served in Vietnam, and that's where they met and had baby Jeff, as I like to say. But he was with the diplomatic Secret Service, I guess. Is that what it is? Department? What? I'm screwing up the acronym.
Diplomatic Security Service. DS.
Diplomatic Security Services. What do I know? So while with them, he worked Madeleine Albright's detail, and he protected the Dalai Lama. How cool is that? The First Lady of Egypt, both in the States, China, and Bosnia. Jeff Wood, Robin Dreek was intrigued by this, as am I. Were you able to speak with the Dalai Lama? When you're protecting someone, by the way, Jeff Wood, are you allowed to talk to them?
You can. When I was the driver, Madeleine Albright would jump in the limo. I'd always say, "Good morning, ma'am," when you're picking her up at her house, or "Good afternoon." It's just a greeting. So, when you're with a protectee, and depending on how long you're with them, I mean, sometimes you're with them, as Craig will tell you, a long time, because shifts, the day shift and then the night shift, and the night shift usually is the command post and certain things. So for us, we pick up Madeleine Albright first thing in the morning, and we take her until we drop her off at night when she goes home. So you could have her 16 hours. So you'll do a little chatting with people here and there, but it also depends on, am I in that closer detail, or am I on when you start getting bigger groups and I'm securing doors, or, the facility, like for the Trump detail in Pennsylvania, you'll have the inner protection detail that's with them everywhere. And then they go out, and you just have this concentric circle of, their Secret Service, local, and it keeps going out. So you fill out your full ring of protection.
Intermittent. Got to have all three.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, who is the most interesting person that you've protected?
Oh, that is a loaded question, because interesting can mean so many things. The most fun person I ever protected was President Clinton, without question. But
that's easy to make jokes about, so I won't do that. But how come?
That today. But my favorite by far was Bush Sr. He was just the greatest human being I've ever met in my life.
Really?
Yeah, you working a midnight with him, because so the detail rent with space from above his garage in his house here in Houston. It'd be 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. You got guys down watching TV, the rest doing Roman patrols, and all of a sudden he would just show up in the security room with ice cream, be like, "Hey, you guys want some ice cream?" and sit and watch a movie with you.
Wow, that's amazing. And I want to hear more about this. I just want to let everyone know. Obviously, I'm a little out of sorts. I don't think it takes a rocket science or a Secret Service agent to figure that out. But we're going to get in line here and have an amazing show. Speaking of amazing shows, this coming Wednesday will be the legend, literally named a living legend, Dr. Ann Burgess. She has a new Hulu series out called Mastermind that I have not seen yet, but it's supposed to be incredible. We're going to show a trailer of it. She's coming on with retired special FBI agent Greg McCrary, who worked at the BAU at the FBI. He entered the FBI when I was born, 50. I'm going to be 55 next week, in 1969. He is an amazing, amazing person with an unbelievable life story. He was chasing serial killers around Europe. He was part of the BAU. And the two of them, these two legends, are coming on Wednesday at 7 Eastern, along with a third person who Ann works with. And they are going to talk about profiling assassins. And this third person, that is his actual expertise in the world. That's what he studies. He studies assassins. Didn't even know that was a thing. Ann Burgess has a PowerPoint for everything. She told me she has a PowerPoint on this, and she's excited to come on. And obviously, we are super excited to have her. So the legend, the living legend, Dr. Ann Burgess, on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, the COE, we have a book signing, 7 o'clock at the Bookseller in Chicago. That is 7 local time, so that would be 8 Eastern. And I decided, why not have some fun? So we are going to bring you all the chaos from behind the scenes. The COE is going to have my phone, and we're going to go live behind the scenes with Carm. I'll give you a hint. We had a minivan that we rented here because there's so many of us. I cannot escape minivans. And I had to physically push Carm into the minivan today. She was struggling to get in on that high step, and it was quite the scene. So the COE has video of that. And what better way to exploit my own mother than to show a video of me shoving her into a minivan? A quick serious note here. This show tonight, not about politics. It's not what we do at Surviving the Survivor. This is about an attempted assassination of a former president of the United States of America. What happened? What went wrong? What do we do now? Where's the investigation? Politics, not a part of it. So if that's your agenda in the chat, buzz off and get lost, even though I love you all. And now let's get into this. So Craig Fraser, and I'm gonna show you guys the video of the incident yesterday, but that's going to be a ways off because I want to just lay the foundation. President Trump did speak to some media outlets, Craig, and he said, and I quote here, "I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be dead." He said it again. "I'm supposed to be dead." He called it a very surreal experience and said that the doctor at the hospital said he never saw anything like this. He called it a miracle. I think that's fairly obvious. His right ear is now covered with a bandage and a portion of it is missing. I said on the show yesterday, 6 or 7 centimeters. It's really probably about a centimeter that saved his life, Craig. And it was a turn into some charts that he had. He was facing forward. When you saw this unfold, either on a replay or if you were watching it live, I have no idea. What was your immediate reaction, Craig?
My first thought was going out to all of the guys that I used to work with. I knew everybody on that stage that responded to take him off. And you know the stress they're going through, the stress that you feel just leading up to that, and the stress in that moment is worse than you could ever imagine. I mean, I've been through that before, and it is unreal how fast and hard your heart can get pumping and make you do things that you didn't know you were capable of. And you know those things are going through the head right now, and they are doing nothing but trying to accomplish the mission. I knew how close it was as soon as I saw the blood on his face.
It's still, I mean, to me, it's just such, I mean, I can't imagine for President Trump, but just, I think for all of us who saw this, it is so surreal. Jeff Wood, you've been in combat and you're an FBI agent. How does training compare to the reality of what these Secret Service agents saw unfold and what they dealt with on Saturday? What's the difference between the training and the reality?
You have to rely on your training, right? I mean, no plan, nothing goes perfect after you get hit in the face. So when that shot rang out, as Craig can tell you, when something happens, and I'm sure Robin's been there too, when that first thing hits, nothing that you've planned will go the way you planned it. It unfolds. But your training kicks in. Everything is muscle memory. It's just, when it happens fast. The adrenaline dumps. Your fine motor skills start to dissipate because you're getting all this adrenaline and you're pumped up, and now it's strictly muscle memory. So those agents, when I was DSS, you're trained. You get around the protectee, and you saw it. The first shot rang out. The president brought his hand up to feel it. He realizes something wrong. He goes to take cover, but you can see everyone instantly reacting on that team to get on him and around him and put their bodies in front of the bullets. So think about that too. You're taking all those people and they're like, we're here to take a bullet for that person. And you have to overcome every instinct of yourself of saying, I need to seek cover. No, you're seeking your protectee and getting around them. So, I mean, they did that's where your training kicks in. So it becomes muscle memory and you do what you have to do. And you saw them do it. I mean, they were fast as lightning when that happened. And I think, if you listen, there's a lot of people say, oh, it sounded like fireworks. But anyone who's been around gunfire, they knew that wasn't fireworks, because that 223 round, when it's fired, it has that distinct sound that you heard. And if you've been around that enough, you know it. And those agents knew it, and they were on him that fast. So, I mean, his reaction, his turning saved his life, but they they did everything they were supposed to do, and it came out. It was shown on TV live. They're all heroes, right? I mean, they did what they had to do.
There's a service saying maximum to the protectee, minimum to the problem. And that's the other thing you fight against. Everybody, when something happens, they want to go to the problem, but you can't in the Secret Service. You're not only fighting your instincts to find cover and avoid the bullets, you have to make sure that you are going to the protectee because you are there for him. Someone else needs to deal with the problem. And it is very difficult to overcome that as law enforcement because we all type A's, we want to get involved, we want to get it done, but we don't do that. We go to the protectee, we make sure he's safe and let other people take care of the problem. So you're fighting two things at once.
Yeah, Craig, let me ask you a question. I'm going to get to Robin in a second, but since you are retired Secret Service and you climbed the ladder there quite high, how do you have the courage to put yourself in the line of fire? That's what you have to swear an oath to. How are you able to get to that point where you're literally willing to die for the office of the presidency of the United States?
I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like more than it is. It's the job, and you do the job to the best of your damn ability, and it doesn't matter who they are. That's what has to be done, and if it has to be done, we do it. And it does take a special person to do it because a lot of people can't ignore those instincts. They can't ignore what they're fighting against to go and do that, and especially if they have differences of political opinion with the person they're protecting. The politics don't have any say in it. The other saying is that worthy of trust and confidence is the Secret Service motto. The unofficial motto is the American people elect them and we protect them. And that's it. And we do what it takes to make sure that happens.
That's an amazing point. That did not come up in the show yesterday. We did a show on this yesterday as well. And again, we're doing one Wednesday with Dr. Ann Burgess on profiling an assassin. But you heard it right there from Craig. This has nothing to do with politics, as I said off the top, but I never really thought about it from the perspective of a Secret Service agent, him or herself. They could lean in a completely different political direction from whoever they're protecting, and it doesn't matter. They are putting their life in a line. That's just giving me the chills as I'm talking about it. This is what makes America the greatest country that it is. Robin Dreek, you see things through a different lens because of your experience, as do the other gentlemen on this panel. What did you see when you watched that for the first time?
You know, it's funny, and it's such a great point. We all have different contexts of things. I quickly knew exactly what it was as well. And I had like three thoughts immediately at the same time that entered my mind. One, who did that bullet hit? Because I knew it was hitting something. I was actually then shocked that, because you knew it was a high caliber, high velocity rounds. And the fact that he actually had a side of a head and the ear left from the concussion wave that went by was also incredible, lucky to me. And then it impacted me how quickly they neutralized the threat. Because, I was expecting more rounds to come down and they didn't. So I had those three simultaneous facts, but the first one I was looking for, literally when I saw that video, was I was looking in the crowds to see who got hit. Because I knew that round or multiple rounds went somewhere, and tragically it did, because it didn't hit him. Its bullet stopped somewhere, and that's where my mind went.
This picture is amazing. Number one, you see, and Craig, we're going to get to this in a minute, but a lot of people are asking, why would they have such a short, not that she's female, but a short Secret Service agent who can't physically cover him? I guess let's start with that, Craig. A lot of people have been asking that question. Is that a fair question?
Everything is fair, but the world is not populated by people like me, six foot tall and 235 pounds. It just doesn't. That's not how it is. You have to work with the people that you're given, and in fact, on that stage, probably half of them weren't Secret Service. From what I understand, and from people I'm talking to, because of the campaign being in high gear, they've got shift temps from HSI. So half the shift will be shift temps to augment their power, and the rest of them will be Secret Service. So you're dealing with people that have been brought over from other agencies, trained by us to do their job, and then deployed. And so you're working with the manpower that you have at your disposal. You don't always have a say in who it is and where it is, because the Secret Service has almost, I think, 42 or 43 full-time protectees right now. And they report require a lot of manpower. They're traveling everywhere. It's a campaign year, so it's even more so. And you take the bodies that you can and you do the best job, make the best plan you can with what you have.
Really amazing. And what's even more amazing, Jeff Wood, this photograph was taken by a New York Times reporter. It's been widely circulated, and you can literally see in that red circle. By the way, if people, I have ADHD, but anyway, if you have questions, I apologize because I know I was mid-sentence. If you have questions, I really want to open it up to these guys tonight. So put the triple Q. I want to open it up to STS Nation to be able to ask the questions. And I'm hoping that the panel, I really want to dig in here for another probably hour and a half. So I hope you guys can stick around. I hope Craig's phone can make it that long. But please put those questions in there. Jeff Wood, they say that if you've had a bullet whiz by your head, you will never, ever forget it. I'm not sure. I imagine that you've experienced that yourself, Jeff. But I was just thinking, I'm the son of a psychiatrist and a social worker. It is just settling in. Even President Trump himself said it was a surreal experience. You think it's going to have some, number one, have you been almost hit by a bullet, Jeff? And number two, is this going to have a long-lasting impact on President Trump psychologically, do you think?
I think this is something he'll remember for the rest of his life. And when this happens, when you get dumped into this kind of a high-stress situation, your fight or flight syndrome kicks in, right? And he fought. There's a lot of people who would immediately flee, whatever. He took cover. Everyone surrounded him when they're finally, okay, it's safe to move him now, right? And they get him up. He's letting the people know, I'm here. I'm still alive. He's pumping his fist, and that's the fight coming out, not flight. So, but even with that, of course you remember. I remember having bullets impacting and hitting around me or flying by. It's something that you don't forget. You hear those rounds. The AR-15, the 223 round has a totally different sound than the AK-47. But when you see the little puff right next to you, like where it hits, and you're thankful it doesn't bounce, because if you have ever been somewhere and you actually see how rounds bounce, it is the craziest thing in the world. So typically you won't see it unless you have tracers, but when you have tracers and you start seeing rounds and the tracers going down range and they hit, the way they tumble, the way they bing over, it's not like in the movie. I mean, it is the craziest thing. So yeah, you remember it, you don't forget it. So he'll definitely remember this. And on top of that, he'll remember because he got hit and it was so close. I mean, yeah. As he said, he should be dead. Yeah. The luckiest person out there right now.
Yeah. Robin Dreek, what about psychologically? You think there's going to be a moment where he's giving, either a speech Thursday at the RNC or down the road when he's back in a field area like he was the other day, where he's going to have thoughts running through his head? Is someone trying to pick me off? Psychologically, what do you think the long-term effect of this will be for him?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Won't it? I thought about that as well. Will he have, a major change in behaviors? And when I've been on your show before, one of the things that we do when assessing individuals is, even with the shooter in this case, is you discover their life arc. And President Trump definitely has a life arc, a pattern of behavior and interacting with human beings that is extremely predictable, like we all are. And like for the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've been really able to predict what he's going to do after every incident. He's going to send out mean tweets. He's going to say things. He's going to label things. He's going to give a speech in a certain way, unless the thing that changes our course and our trajectory on that life arc is a major traumatic event. Because we don't, as human beings, go from 0 to 100. We go from 0 to 5 miles an hour, then to 10. If we have a slow switch, in other words, we have a self-awareness moment, we will gradually shift that behavior to a newer behavior, unless we have a life-defining event, as he did. Now, the impact of that can only be assessed by him and then what we watch. So what I would be watching, what I'm watching now and observing, because it fascinates me, is he's already said he's changing and changed up his speech he's given because it had a defining moment in his life. It'll be interesting to see whether his arc is here and then does just a blip and back to normal behavior, or we have a blip and now we have a new trajectory and a new behavior pattern, which could also, to your original question, involve any PTSD type moments. It's hard to tell. He fought back. So when you have a fight flight response and your initial reaction is to fight, I'm thinking, again, I'm not a licensed psychologist, always got to caveat that, but I'm thinking he won't have that kind of event. I'm curious as to whether this life-defining event keeps that arc shifted for the long run.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out. Brooklyn Jana had the shooter get past. We're going to get to this question in a little bit. I just want to get to the victims here, and there are other victims. One lost his life besides just Donald Trump here. So this is Corey Comparator. This is a photo of him right here, and his wife, now his widow, unbelievably, she spoke out today. She said his final two words. There were just two words he said, and it was "get down." She went on to say, "He's my hero." He just said, "Get down." That was the very last thing he said. Craig, you guys are heroes. This guy's a retired fire chief. He literally died protecting his family. Your reaction to hearing that?
It's just, it breaks me. The Secret Service exists to prevent that from happening. And when we fail, and we did fail, I mean, I don't want to dwell on that too much right now, but we failed him and we failed President Trump. And it just hurts me because we are supposed to not allow that to happen. No one gets to hurt people in front of me. And if they do, they deal with the consequences. And we're not able to do that today. And it hurts to not be effective. We have a zero fail mission. You have to be perfect 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year at every point of earth that you are on. That's the mission of the service. And when it's difficult, but we got to do it.
And I said this before, and I'll say it again. This is why I'm very pro law enforcement. I support law enforcement. These guys put their lives, and women put their lives on the line every single day. And it's very easy to criticize. I mean, you can't even come close to comparing it, but I mean, I get criticized all the time. But these guys are getting criticized for putting their lives on the line. And are there some bad police officers out there? Of course, but there's some bad accountants. There's bad podcast hosts, not me. There's just bad florists. There's bad everything. But 99% keep us protected, and they're the first ones that we call whenever there's a problem. Two other victims remain in the hospital. One is 74-year-old James Copenhaver, who I heard was in the military, I believe, and David Dutch, 57. They are both at Allegheny Health Network. David Dutch was shot in the liver and I believe shoulder. They were in critical, and they're both in stable condition now. Craig, I'm just going to go back to you on this because I'm getting to the news, and then I want to get to kind of what went wrong, and I'm going to play the video for everyone again, just so we can go through it. But there's plenty of news out there today related to all this, and maybe the biggest piece is that now the presumptive nominee and the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, he is going to be given the same level of Secret Service protection as the president. What does that mean logistically and in reality?
Well, some of it I can't get into so much, but he'll get a lot more technical assets that will help his security posture, but it also means at the most basic level, he'll get more bodies. Manpower being a finite resource, that's the number one thing that you fight all the time. You have to find the best plan for the manpower at your disposal. If you increase that by 30%, I can get a much better plan. And I think that's what we're going to see now. We'll see him have far more bodies. We'll have more Secret Service and less augmentees because we want to make sure we have the best possible trained individuals around him at the same time. The technical assets that he'll be getting probably wouldn't have helped in this situation. Again, I can't go too far into them, but they will help him at other times.
Another question for you, Craig. Here, are agents assigned to the desk after this for a while? What happens to these agents who are protecting former President Trump? Are they put right back into service? What goes on?
I mean, we're in ground that hasn't been covered since really the 80s right now, so it's hard to say what they will do. I think the initial investigation, they'll have a cooling off period where they're maybe working in the office and they're trying to figure out exactly what happened, but they'll put them right back in the mix fairly quickly because I don't think they have much of a choice with the campaign going on. The body requirements are unbelievable. They cannot be overstated. But if there was a significant failure and they can prove negligence on the part of an agent, then yes, he will be sat down. He or she will be sat down, probably on anything else for a long time and until they can be let go. But honestly, I don't think we're going to see that here. I really don't.
Jeff Wood, we're also getting word today that RFK, who's running as an independent, Robert Kennedy's son, of course, he was assassinated as well as his uncle, JFK. He's now, he hadn't been getting any security. First of all, does it surprise you that he wasn't getting security? I mean, he's a big name, famous family. How was that even possible? Now he's going to be getting some protection, but how was that possible in the first place, Jeff?
Well, I imagine it's because he's running as an independent and he probably doesn't have enough votes to really have the federal government, and Craig will be able to confirm this if I'm right, is, at the time, even with his name recognition, he wasn't taken seriously enough as to be someone that is a real threat to pull in a lot of votes overall to warrant protection, right? I mean, the last time we had anyone significant like him was still Ross Perot, and I don't even know if Ross Perot got protection back in 92 and 96. So I think that's why it fell to that. But I think after yesterday, just to be safe, they're like, hey, he will get some votes. Maybe we put a small detail on that. That's my take.
Yeah, Craig, was that a mistake for him to not have protection prior to this?
No, so there's very specific requirements for petitioning for protection from the Secret Service and getting it. You have to poll above, and I don't know the exact numbers. I'm going to say I think it's poll above 15% in at least 2 national polls for 2 straight cycles before you can even be considered a major candidate enough to rate Secret Service protection. And he has not done that. I think he's polling at 5 or 6%. So he's not hit the threshold to make that mark. Now, with this happening, they may change that that requirement, but I don't see it happening in the near future.
They spoke to an Israeli special agent. The New York Post did today. I happened to catch this article, and Robin Dreek. This kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier. This Donald Trump. They said just literally, I'm going to play the video in a little bit. Just turned his head to look at a chart out in the distance. And again, if he was head on, as they say here, it was game over. Just speak to me about that. I mean, in life, it's just a game of inches. My dad used to say that to me, but it relates back to the Secret Service. If you're not completely on your game, if you're 1 centimeter off, that could make all the difference, couldn't it, Robin?
Yeah, 100%. I saw the diagrams of it too. With that head turned, it would have penetrated, a couple inches or about a couple centimeters into the brain. And again, the high velocity round coming through there at hypersonic speeds, I won't get graphic. It would be, there wouldn't be very much to look at anymore. Kind of like in my theory about the shooter, why they had a hard time getting to his cell phone. If it's an Apple cell phone with Face ID, there's no face left. So that's my theory on why it took a while to probably get in that as well. So that was a catastrophic round coming through there. And it was, whatever your belief system in the universe, whether you believe in the universe, or you believe in God, you believe in something, that round was not supposed to hit him. That is just unbelievable to me.
It really is amazing. And I apologize. I'm actually going to take this down. Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know there's a lot of people who've been talking about the cell phone. I know 2016, 2017, you had the San Bernardino terrorist.
Yep.
Right. Apple refuses to cooperate with the government, even if we have a search warrant to break a phone for us. So the technique that we have, and again, I can't get into the technique that the FBI uses, but it's not something that can, we're having to try to break the password without entering the password 10 times, or the phone shuts down and you've lost it, right? So Apple literally came out. We had a search warrant, said, help us break the phone. We will not do it, and was going to court over it. And then we found a way to actually do it. It can take a long time because of the way we do it, so we don't lose the data. And then Apple sued us, the FBI, to find out how we did it, so that way they could prevent it from happening in the future. And we tell them, like, you're not helping us, pound sand.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you how we break your phone encryption.
And then they probably created another patch for it, which is why I think it took longer on this one. Again, if you got a body and you can put that thing in front of the face, but when there's no face left, there's no access so you got to create a new patch.
I was trying to get the video for this today, and we just we're having trouble with the travel. So my apologies to you, but you can see the counter sniper team here. And Craig, Jeff, and Robin, if I ask anything that's, sensitive and you can't answer, I've already heard Craig say he didn't want to get into stuff, which I fully understand. You guys just let me know, because I'm a reporter at heart. That's what I did for many years. And I'm nosy, so I ask questions. But I was reading another really interesting article, Craig. This is a little graphic, but it says that snipers, and we're going to talk about these two snipers. Snipers are typically trained to shoot into the cerebral cortex of the cerebellum at the top of the brainstem. Is that accurate, Craig?
I mean, I can't answer that specific for their training. I know they're trained to end threats out to 1,000 meters. I mean, ending the threat with a gun like that, it doesn't take hitting him in the brainstem really to do it. But if they can hit it, that's great. But they're going to do it out to 1,000 meters, and they're not going to miss.
Jeff Wood, it goes on. This expert goes on to say, by doing that, by hitting basically the bottom of the brain, the top of the spine, where the stem is, it incapacitates you. It keeps your hands from moving. It's about the distance of the shot, 130 yards, which is about what this guy had. 400 feet we're looking at here, but he was talking about the distance here, 130 yards. This expert said, and I quote, "That's a putt. Anyone can put a 2-2-3 optic on a target from that distance and hit it. It's not a difficult shot to make." Do you agree with that, Jeff?
If you've had any training, that's very easy. Robin, Craig, and I both, all being in the military, our range without even a scope, with iron sights, you're shooting out to 500 yards, expecting to center mass. And if you're going to be an expert shot, I mean, I don't know how they did on the range. I know first time I went to the range, I got my expert rifleman's badge, and I always shot experts. You've got to hit a certain amount out of a certain amount, and you're shooting out to that far distance. So you're talking 500 yards, 300 meters to 500 yards, and this is 130 yards. So this is, I mean, that's not that far of a shot. That's why everyone was so lucky. But I can tell you, I do know what the person was talking about when they say that the T, we call it the T. If you shoot across the eyes and down, that is a shot. If you can take the shot, that yes, you're taking out the ability for the central nervous system. So the guy can't use his hands, the girl can't use his hands. But I know just normal, we shoot center mass, because this is a hell of a lot smaller than this, right? And so here's a high school kid. I know the word's out. Oh, he was on the rifle team. I thought he failed the rifle team. Maybe he shot a few times, but from what I've heard recently was the police, they didn't have a ladder, so you had a police officer trying to get up on top of the roof to see what was going on. And I think this is what probably helped everybody out or saved President Trump's life, was he didn't have a ladder, so he's climbing on his buddy's back. As he's pulling up to look, the guy points the rifle. He tries to duck down to come back up, but as he ducked down, he fell off. But now that throws the guy's ability. Now I'm guessing he's thinking, I don't have the time, so he rushes a shot, and that's why, he missed Trump the way he did.
Fire. I mean, it's crazy how fast he can lay down and start putting accurate fire down range.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. Robin, that's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, are you surprised that 20-year-old kid who had to be, crapping as what? I mean, he had to be nervous or just in an altered state where maybe he was calm. I can't imagine that, though, that he was able to get that close by literally taking part of the former president's ear off. Were you surprised that he got off that close a shot?
No, so when you look at, because even the title of this show, profiling an assassin or it's hard to do because there's not a lot of them. Someone's going to try to take out a president. But so you look at it from a murderer's point of view, you can profile murderers. And so that's what he is. He's a murderer. And, so you have the 4 motivations for murder. And this was, it's the 4 F's. I mean, the L, so it's loathing is most likely it. And then it takes some sort of psychosis, to pop in there that, allows you to focus and move the fantasy into action. But what's interesting about it was once you are determined to do harm, you're going to do harm. Now, luckily, you had a bunch of bystanders that saw something really off and they rushed that shot, because if he wasn't rushed, this probably would have been different as well. And it just shows you how easy it is for, and I'll say anyone, because 20 years old, he doesn't have a lot of life reps in doing this. Whether he went to the range a few times or not, it doesn't matter. That's not a lot of life reps. The first time you take, and he doesn't have a record, the first time you shoot at a human being, that is a massive deviation from what's going on in a normal brain. And that's a high stress environment that's going on, and your prefrontal cortex is flooding, everything's going on here. And the fact he was even that accurate was amazing. That's why there had to be something else going on chemically in that brain that allowed him to even do that, because that's a very unusual thing he was doing. But it just shows how, unfortunately, how easy it is to fire that weapon accurately.
Yeah. Craig, we're going to get to these questions. Jennifer Corman, why did they allow that roof to be unprotected? Followed by, how did he get past Secret Service? We're going to get to those in a minute. Analytical Blarney, AB, thank you for this. Thank you for keeping the chat free of silliness, et cetera, et cetera. As I said, this is not about politics. This is about a former president almost being assassinated and what went wrong. Did anything go right? We're going to explore these questions as we continue to move forward. But again, Craig, I know you can't give specifics. I've got a little thing here I'm going to play right now. The RNC just kicked off. This is Matt Gutman, who I've been out reporting with on different stories before. He's a senior correspondent with ABC, the security in Milwaukee tonight and through this convention. Let's watch for a second, and I'll ask Craig some questions about this.
Milwaukee this morning look like a fortress. There are miles of these steel and concrete barriers. There are thousands of law enforcement officers from multiple states, including the Secret Service, with those snipers up on the rooftops. Now, the Secret Service has said that at this point it does not plan to change its security posture, and the FBI has said there is no specific or credible threat to this event. Now, there are 2 security zones here. What you're seeing right there is Fraser. That's where the convention is actually going to be held, and this is called the hard security perimeter, and that is controlled by the Secret Service. No vehicles and no firearms. Just on the other side of the bridge and north of here, that is the soft perimeter. That's controlled by state and local authorities, and that's where we're going to see thousands of people march in protest today. And in order to try to prevent violence between protesters and convention goers, certain items have been banned, including tennis balls, 2x4s, paintball guns. But because of the gun laws here in Wisconsin, what you can carry here are firearms, including AR-15s.
By the way, you heard that right. I'm playing this part one more time. I couldn't believe it. You can't have paintballs, tennis balls, but you can have an AR-15. Let's hear this one more time.
And violence between protesters and convention goers, certain items have been banned, including tennis balls, 2x4s, paintball guns. But because of the gun laws here in Wisconsin, what you can carry here are firearms, including AR-15s.
Craig, I can't wrap my head around that. I know that's kind of the American way with the Second Amendment, but you can't carry a 2x4, but you can carry an AR-15. How's that possible, Craig?
So state laws can be like that. That's true. But what I'm surprised at is the Secret Service hasn't trumped it. Title 18, United States Code 3056 is the federal statute that gives the Secret Service their authority. And part of that authority, it says we can establish zones of protection as we see fit and control it as we see fit. They should have come through, and I would imagine, I can't imagine they didn't, and say, this is now our zone of protection, and no, you can't have your guns here. Your state laws don't apply. This is now a federal protected zone. They can do that, and I imagine that if that hasn't been done, that's going to be coming pretty soon.
Yeah, and I don't mean to jump in, but I agree. I don't get that either. You know, I served a lot of my time in New York City. And I worked very close with DSS as well as Secret Service on a lot of things and a lot of different protections we were doing up there for the UNG, General Assembly. My best friend I went to the Naval Academy with, he was a DSS agent. And what always blew my mind and always made us angry was Secret Service made us disarm. FBI, who has federal jurisdiction to wear arms anywhere, we couldn't be armed around protectees, because if they said this is our zone, we couldn't wear our guns. So it's kind of shocking to me as well.
Yeah. By the way, as of late today, they said there are going to be no changes to the RNC security zone. But then the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, she kind of backtracked and said that they, quote unquote, strengthened its security plan for the RNC. This is her statement. I am confident in the security plan our Secret Service RNC coordinator and our partners have put in place, which we have reviewed and strengthened in the wake of Saturday's shooting. I mean, Jeff Wood, this question from Davy Jones, do you think they would let someone into the crowd with a rifle? I mean, they're saying that some areas here you can carry an AR-15. I mean, is that realistic, Jeff Wood, that you're going to see someone with a weapon walking around during these protests?
I doubt that we would see people who would really want to bring an AR-15, right? And I will say, depending on the circle, like he kind of talked about the circles, right? The ring, we call them the ring of protection. Like here's Trump, and for the RNC it goes out, and I imagine when you look with the RNC, the DNC, I remember doing the DNC in Boston back in, I think it was 2004. I worked at DNC, and you've got every federal law enforcement agency working together. I mean, you're talking the protections is huge. So to me, when I hear people say, oh, they're not really changing much, I don't really see a need because you've already got it at the highest level, right? There's a difference between the RNC and this rally that was on Saturday, which is why, the security level is going to be slightly different, because here we're talking about we have so many different people and it's so big with the protests that you're going to have everything else. But I mean, just go back a few years when you had all the riots in Wisconsin, you had people walking around then with rifles and handguns and pistols and stuff. So, I mean, I just don't think that you'd have anyone who'd really want to try and get that close, because the closer you get to that inner circle, the faster you'll have a lot more police officers walking around, because, you're going to have a lot of plainclothes law enforcement officers just walking around. If they see something, they're going to be kind of there and also talking, and they're just going to kind of get the guy to walk away or the gal to walk away. So, I mean, I think we'll be kind of safe with that, right? So, I don't see it.
A. Heineman just filling us in. They said not guns in a hard zone, guns allowed in the soft zone. Nevertheless, there's going to be guns in there. I'll tell you what. Let's thank you for this. Definitely the best guests for sure. You're not going to find a better panel, more informed, talking in non-sound bites anywhere. Especially not. Look at this. Look at this. Ned Smith is reading my mind in the mainstream media for sure. But also, you're not going to find it anywhere else on YouTube, I don't think, this caliber. So there you go. Let's watch this together, and then I'm just going to kind of go around the horn and do what we did last night. I'm going to stop it and start it, but let's watch this together. I know, Craig, is it tough for you to watch this because you feel disappointed in what happened?
It hurts me so much. Or I don't fail, and we don't fail. It just hurts me to my bones.
Yeah.
Before you play, let me just say, Craig said earlier, when you're in these positions, the president, when I had the Dalai Lama, the Secretary of State, we do have to be perfect every time. And if you think about it in the long run, being perfect, what's ever really perfect like that? We're not, right? And in training, they tell you all the time, if you have someone willing to die, you're going to have an incident. At whether or not hopefully you have the incident before it gets to the point where it happened on Saturday. But if you have someone willing to die to try and take that shot, you're going to have an incident.
Yep.
The goal is to make the average person, the average terrorist who wants to succeed and live, not go after your target, right? You want to become the hardest target possible. And I can remember in training, you go back, I think it was Greece, there were some terrorists that were looking to take hostages, and they succeeded. They took some hostages, and when everything was said and done and they got the hostages back, they found the notes of the terrorists. And there was a note talking about this Navy officer that they were surveilling to see if they could kidnap. And they said too hard of a target, which is exactly what you do with these details. The protection details make it too hard for that average person, because they never tried to kidnap that Navy officer because they said he's too hard of a target. So it does hurt. As Craig says, it does hurt, but you got to remember, if someone's willing to die, and this kid was willing to die, which I think adds, which you didn't mention, Robin, like, you're right. When it goes to say, I'm 20 years old, I'm not in the military, I'm not here, I'm willing to go out and risk and die to try and take my shot. That really talks about how that brain's wired at that age. And
the thing that really struck me with Craig, and I even wrote it down, no one gets to hurt people in front of me.
Yeah,
right. That sums it up right there. For whatever you can say, about our executives and our own organizations that are not focused on mission, sometimes are focused on career and politics, all those things, and as someone pointed out, one of your viewers, you can see it on Craig's face. This is what matters to people that are people-oriented and mission-oriented. And it's always fascinating to me as a human behavior guy that people automatically assume that the type A people that go into law enforcement or go into the military or something are just these robots. No, the most compassionate human beings on the face of the planet, because all we do is focus on service above self. And that is what you're seeing here. And so at that low grassroots level, you saw that day there was failures and challenges, but what you saw a lot of younger agents that were closer in, and even medium senior agents doing this because they felt compelled that no one gets hurt in front of me.
Lindsay Shea, it's really meaningful to me to see the passion Craig has along with Jeff and Robin. Bless you all. I second that. Followed by thank you very much. Followed by Lee in Maine. We are living in such a divided nation. I was talking about this yesterday. Robin was down at Ground Zero. I happened to work next door at 3 World Financial, and I still can't get the smell of that out of my nostrils. I can still smell that. But Robin was doing the serious work of sifting through things there. I want to address kind of the elephant in the room. There's so many people in this chat too, not a ton of people in the chat per se, but you go on that cesspool that is X, where I spend way too much of my day. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories being floated out there. Craig, I see you nodding your head. The CIA is behind this. On and on it goes that he was high. They hired this 20-year-old. I just, since you guys live it, breathe it, and do this, just if you have a comment on that, Craig.
The misinformation that people will instantly believe and share is unbelievable. Why did they leave the rooftop unsecure? Why did this guy get past the Secret Service? None of that happened. You formulate a plan with the manpower you have. That plan was to have the counter sniper team watch the rooftop. But you have to understand, when they're watching the rooftop, they also have a field out to 1,000 meters that might be a half mile wide at zenith. and they have to look at this one, this one, this one before they come back to that one. You have had to make a decision in your security plan to say, I can't, that's outside my perimeter. I can't have a body on it all the time, but I'm going to watch it when I can. There's going to be a time delay. But now everybody wants to think, because of that time delay, for the counter sniper team to come back and look at that rooftop, that it's suddenly a conspiracy theory. We've allowed this shot to happen. The deep state wanted to get rid of Trump. It is just nonsense. You have to understand the way you deploy manpower is the best solution at the best location. And sometimes it's not perfect.
Robin, you care to add on to that? I mean, I saw you kind of chuckling about the conspiracy theories and the waves of misinformation. It's just, I don't know Robin, what is happening with social media? Are people is it just all group think now? People don't have a mind for themselves anymore. Your thoughts on that, as well as this flurry of conspiracy theories out there?
Yeah, I mean,
and by the way, the conspiracy theorists are going to say we're all crazy. They're going to say Robin's an idiot, Joel's an idiot, Craig, I don't care what he did for his country, or Jeff, those guys are just lying to themselves. The government is in on this. What do you say to them?
So I'll do the conspiracy theory first. Before I was in the FBI, I was a Marine Corps officer, and I got assigned to New York field office right as Flight 800 had happened, TWA Flight 800. And I was one of these conspiracy theory guys that, hey, we probably shot this plane down, they're covering it up. And then when you get inside the mechanism of government and you see, I don't want to say incompetence, but you see hundreds and hundreds of people with a lack of ability to keep their mouth shut in all organizations. I'm like, if there was any hint of a conspiracy here, it would blab out. I have seen more incompetence and stupid things than I've seen conspiracies. And I was also there during 9/11. I've had people come up to me and say, oh, didn't we take down that building? There's charges set on the building. When you saw those towers, as you did too, come down the way they come down, you understand, the physics behind, fuel from jetliners going down those pillars and melting it. And the buildings were designed to collapse down like that. You get it. And when you are surrounded by people and you're working this case yourself and you're interviewing the people and you're seeing, even in TWA, you're guarding the wreckage out of Calverton like I was, and you saw after all the dumb people make dumb mistakes and you see there's no conspiracy theory, it really comes down to, again, going to the grassroots agents across all these organizations, working their asses off to find truth for families to have justice and move forward in their lives. That's even out at Fresh Hills Landfill that I spent days at, we were raking for what I called fingers and toes duty. We were doing all we could to try to give any family member any semblance of something back for a family. We spent weeks and months out there looking for a little something just so a family had something. That's what we do. So yes, you can look at the 50,000 foot and get inflamed by things, but at the grassroots level, it goes back to what Craig was saying. No one gets hurt in front of me. And, that's what we all care about. Now, going to the groupthink, yes, Robert Greene's, seminal works on human behavior, laws of human nature, and the 48 laws of power and all these other behavior books says it's very plain and obvious. Human beings, we consume and thrive on looking at disaster. And disaster sells ad space. And so that's what you're constantly doing. And we are constantly only viewing, it's funny, who said this? Nelson Mandela said this in the early 60s as he was getting released and actually in jail and still getting released from jail in South Africa. He said, news media exists to produce content for their consumers. And if you know what your consumers want to consume, they're going to continue to present content for that. And so when you have that and you have groupthink, and as human beings, is another great book, it's called The Comfort Crisis. We are designed to be in deprivation, to innovate, strive, and overcome in collective mentalities. When we are in a time period of abundance of comfort, we make crap up. So we have strife in our lives, and that's what kind of gravitates us in. So long narrative answers as I give, I apologize, but that's a long essay. Yes, we get sucked into groupthink. We want to believe the worst in things because we love to consume these things, because we also like saying, as a human species, well, it's them, it's not me. and then it plays into our own insecurities. It validates our own self-opinion of ourselves. And so it's a disaster, but but we are better now than we've been at any other time in history. Believe it or not, it's people don't like to think that. Study history, study time periods, study the great biographies of great people that have lived throughout history. And you will say, this is an amazing time period. As chaotic as it is, we are still an upward trajectory of safer today than we were even 50 or 100 years ago, let alone hundreds of years ago.
I would also add real quick, Hell's Angels motto, 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. It goes to that whole yes. to make this happen. And you can go back to lots of different things we've seen. We've been on the other shows when we've talked about stuff like this. When you have that many people involved to keep that secret, you can't do it. Too many people talking. No one's going to have the right lie to keep a whole conspiracy going either.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy to keep a lie going, man.
And that's why
Jeff Wood, shades of Karen Reed right there. But Tara Ellis here. Yes. I'm going to toss this one to the Secret Service agent, to Craig. Why do you think the Secret Service, and I promise you we're going to get to that video that is tough for Craig to watch, but we'll break it down. But why do you think the Secret Service and law enforcement didn't hear the people screaming from the lawn that there's a guy with a gun? Were they just too far away? The videos are gut-wrenching. So for those who don't know this, there were multiple people out in the rally who called attention to law enforcement saying that they saw someone with a gun, with a rifle, and even saw him climbing the roof at one point. What do you think the breakdown in communication was there, Craig?
So honestly, I don't believe there was, and I'll tell you why. The process of them informing the local law enforcement, which they did, that's the exterior of our perimeter. We don't have Secret Service assets there. That's local law enforcement. So how do they relay that information to us? Number one, they can't go address the problem because typically the local law enforcement's been assigned to a post and he cannot leave because they might be trying to tell him something that is to get him to leave. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that his post is manned. So he's going to get on the radio. We don't have comms necessarily with the local law enforcement. He's got a radio into the command center. Then the command center is going to figure out what post is he, what's the closest asset. I'm going to call them and I'm going to dispatch them to them while I go out over the air to the counter sniper team. This all takes time. You can train your response down to be quick, but it's never going to be 0 seconds. All of these take time to respond and react. And this kid got on top of the roof, laid down and started shooting extremely quickly before that response engine could drive fully.
All right, let's get to this now. Let's watch this together. I want to play the entire clip, and then we'll kind of break it down and get the expert analysis. And there's some things, a lot more news that came out today. I want to try to get to as much of that as we can. But here we go. This is the now infamous attempted assassination on former President Donald Trump.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Moving his hair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up.
I'm going to get back to that in a sec. Craig, to you, I'm not going to mention a name because this was going back and forth while I was flying. Were you in a situation where there was an attempt on a former president, or am I dreaming this?
No, I was.
Are you able to speak about this?
I can give you some of it because a little bit of it came out in the press, but I took former President Carter in 2009 into Gaza, Israel. And in 2009, it was not long after Hamas had gotten elected to the new government of Gaza, and then they had fought a war with Israel, and now Carter was going to come and do bomb damage assessment. He was going to link up with the local authorities, who are all Hamas members, and the legally elected government. And so now It made the advance work a little tough just because we're not allowed to give any comfort to terrorist organizations, but they're the legally elected representatives. So all of my paperwork had to list the legally elected representatives of the Gazan people, and because I couldn't call them Hamas, because if I did, now I've committed a crime against the United States. So we took him in 2009, and we had to drive him in. And as we crossed into Gaza, they had tried to blow us up with 7 daisy-chained anti-tank mines on our route. As we blew through, I actually could see him on the side, and he was trying to light it off because he had a plunger device. He didn't have an over-the-air radio. He had a plunger device, and it was wired incorrectly. And not long after we passed, we watched him run to the sea, take a left at the beach, and that was the last we saw of him.
Wow. What was the president's reaction, if you're able to tell us?
So the press was in our motorcade with us, so it actually was reported on fairly quickly in the local Israeli press. They started asking him questions. Our first site at the time was actually a UN compound, and we went to the UN compound, and he actually denied it happened because he couldn't believe it. He's the friend of the Palestinians. He was there. And so it was hard for him to fathom that it had actually happened. And so the only problem is with Gaza, your route in is your route out. There's only one way in and one way out. So we had to go back through 8 hours later down that same road where those anti-tank mines had been laid. And we had no idea if Hamas had cleared them. We had no idea if Hamas had been in on them. We had very little to go on.
Unbelievable. These stories are unreal. I'm going to play this back for a little bit. We'll break it up now, and we'll go to Craig again first, and then the others to get their breakdown and analysis.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
I'm going to stop it right there. So I was told, I didn't time this out myself. Obviously, you can see it's almost like he's like got stung by a bee. Obviously, we know it's a bullet now. There's a reaction. He goes down. It was, I think, 2 seconds before Secret Service agents were there. Up to this point, Craig, is this the way you're trained to do things?
Yes, and he is trained to do those things as well. Part of the reason he dropped down is because you look in front of the stage, that's all armor. He's dropping behind a barrier. And so he drops down, we cover the protectee, we wait for the threat to be neutralized, and then we pick him up, we move him to cover. That they did everything right. I am so proud of those guys. It looks unwieldy, it looks weird, but it's very difficult to push 5 or 6 bodies together, and you are supposed to be touching from your toes to your shoulders around this protectee in a 360-degree circle, and then move as a unit downstairs and across over to the hard car. They did it perfectly. I love every one of them, and I wish I could thank every one of them personally.
Yeah, we're watching it without sound now. So 2 seconds are up there. You heard from the toes to the shoulders. Even former President Trump today said that his shoes were knocked over, or knocked off, I should say. When you say, Craig, that they're trained to do this, when you're taking a protectee, let's say Donald Trump on this Saturday, do you remind him before he gets out of the car? Do you say, Mr. Trump, don't forget, if something, God forbid, happens, remember to drop down? How often are they reminded of this?
It's difficult to say with the protectees. They're talked to about it fairly regularly, but they don't harp on it. They have other things to do, and they've got a lot on their mind. We teach them. We remind them as appropriate, but they know what to do.
And then here, this is another. So Craig, and I apologize to Jeff and Robin, but this is Craig's real wheelhouse right here. So you see this guy, obviously in a Trump shirt in the front. And I'm just thinking to myself, because I've read the craziest things online. But Craig, here you're going to see what I was informed may have been the special agent in charge running up the stage from the left side here. When we're watching it from the left side, tell me who this person is we're about to see.
Okay.
Right here. He comes running right there, this guy.
I have to see his face to know if it's the detail leader, because I know the detail leader. I've worked with him quite a bit.
But so I guess more broadly then, someone is obviously running up right here. Is that protocol for this other person to run in there and kind of take cover around So in other words, there was an inner circle already there, and then this kind of extra person, for lack of a better scientific, and then there's another one right there. Who are these other people coming in just moments afterward?
So every protectee has got what's called a working shift. Those are the ones that stand around him. They are the ones personally responsible for his body. At that point, they are bodyguards. They're not protection agents. There is a difference. A bodyguard is someone that stands in front of problems. A protection agent is somebody who prevents problems before they happen. But at that point where they're with him, they are his bodyguards, and they are the ones that are completely responsible for every facet of him with the detail leader. And those are the ones that went to him. Because as I said, our motto is maximum of the problem, maximum of the protectee, minimum of the problem, because we are supposed to smother him, get him safe, while other people that are designed to handle the problem, handle the problem.
And Craig, there's already criticism out there that he should never have been allowed to get up. I mean, I don't know, he could have stopped him and gave, now iconic fist where he says, fight, fight, fight. Was that a error on the part of Secret Service? Should they have had him pulled down, more kind of suffocated, for lack of a better word, so he didn't even have that opportunity? He obviously wanted that opportunity, and he's a big guy. He's 6'3", 200, and I'm not going to say how many pounds. I don't know, but it's more than 215 for sure. But I mean, was that a gap with the Secret Service there that he was able to give that fist?
Protectee should not be allowed to make decisions that go against security protocols. In this instance, if you hear the audio, and I heard it live, was shooters down, shooters down. Mm-hmm. That's because they already had gotten word from the counter sniper team that they put one through the top of his head. Mm-hmm. There are already agents on the other side of the stage and throughout the crowd, and their job, the reason why they're not on the protectee, is because they are looking for secondary threats. If they have not identified a secondary threat and they've already know the primary shooter is down, it is time to get the hell out of there. You don't wait for anything. So get him out and get him in a car where you know he's safe and get him moving. So I would say that they followed procedure perfectly, and I think they did everything well.
And Jeff, I'm just going to take the audio off for a second. I mean, Jeff, one of the things, Jeff, that people are talking about are these blood-curdling screams. And, there's one way to train, but then there's the reality. And I'm sure you experienced this in combat, where people either freeze up. But how do you do your job as a Secret Service agent or an FBI agent or a soldier under this intense stress? I mean, everyone is screaming. It literally sounds like the soundtrack to Jaws at this point. When he, approaches the beach. But how do you keep your calm and your cool?
That's where your training kicks in. I do want to add something to what Craig said and kind of your question, because a lot of people think, 2 seconds is so long. 2 seconds is actually very fast, right? Because if you break everything down, and this goes to brain functions, right? The shot happens. First of all, Trump gets hit before you hear the shot, but it's very quick because it's close, right? But he feels that he does that, and then all of a sudden you're hearing the shots. Everyone around that stage one has to hear the shot. They have to recognize what it is, and then they have to react, right? So you're saying there's a shot. Oh my God, it's a shot. And now your brain is actually, it's not like this. It actually takes a little bit of time for your brain to send the signal to your legs to start moving. Mm-hmm. And that's where training kicks in once you do, is because they know what they have to do. They do it perfectly, just as Craig said, and they're doing it you see how the training kicked in, where you take someone who's never done this before, and by the time the brain says to move, it's going to be like 5-6 seconds. That's how fast they're responding, that is happening within that 2 seconds, to show how well that training kicks in. And then again, here's the training. You ignore what's going on, right? So when you're on the field of battle and you're moving on an objective and you're firing, and the guy on your left goes down, you leave them while you're moving on the objective and let your medics coming up behind you take care of it. Because if you stop to take care of your buddy while you're still moving on to the objective, now you're in the position where you're not able to get those guys out for you to take your guy that just got hit back. So it's all that training that's kicking in. So for here, they're ignoring the screams, they're ignoring the noise, they're in the radios, they're talking, they're hearing shooters down, they're letting everyone else check for secondary threats before they move them. And then, let everyone say what they want to say. Until you're dealing with someone who your protectee may have been told, in this case, Trump, over and over again, when we're moving, you just move, right? But in his mind now, his shoes are off, they fell off, and he's like, I'm not moving, I want my shoes on. I don't care how many guys are on them. He's 6'something", 6'3", 230, 240. It's not easy to move someone like that. There's 6 of them.
Moved.
Try and move him when he doesn't want to move. Try and keep one hand from going up. It's why when you watch videos now and people say, oh my God, look at those 5 cops beat that guy up. It's not beating somebody up. You're trying to get that guy, he's fighting you, and all 5 people are having a trouble fighting one person. So imagine now with that adrenaline dumping through, because Trump, I'll tell you right now, when that adrenaline hits, and everyone here who's been there, when that adrenaline hits, when you're done, for the next 12 hours to 24 hours, your body's going to shake because that adrenaline is so much in you, and it's got to burn. And the only way it's burning is with your twitching, and you'll shake. And it's not like you're afraid; it's just it's in you, and it's got to burn. And I mean, they had it. Everyone there, every agent, Trump, they'll have that adrenaline burning through them now for the next 12 plus hours. So
yeah, something I want to point out too, and you saw it was so evident here, and I know we're not focused on what went wrong in the inner circle, because you can see the rehearsals, the hundreds and hundreds of hours of rehearsals, because that, to get to your point, Joel, is like, how do you block everything out? This is instinct. You just saw instinct kick in, because this is hundreds of hours of rehearsals and planning of the inner circle. The outer circle, which is manned by local law enforcement, I wonder how much rehearsals they did. In other words, the first time you see something that you've never seen before, your brain has to now wire, what am I seeing? What do I do about this? You can be told a lot of things, but until you experience it the first time, you're not going to quite know what to do or what you're seeing. So I'm curious about that outer circle, which was not these professionals that do protective details. In that outer circle, and they're saying, hey, the local law enforcement, state, or whoever's involved, you're going to be doing protective detail for this. They're like, okay, I can look at a gun, but until you actually get the rep of actually seeing someone and rehearse, what do you do if you see someone crawling up on the side of a building with a gun? It's a different optic if you've never seen it before, because you don't have the reps yet. And so that's where I think that some of that delay, again, pure conjecture on my part, but I think that's where we're seeing some of that earlier delay that people are criticizing.
Yeah, and Robin, I'm sorry, Robin, I just want to come back to you on the crowd now, the focus of the crowd. What do you make of the reactions from this crowd as a behavioral expert?
They have no idea what they just saw. That's the first reaction. But what you can hear, that blood curdling scream, that's when my guess is that's Compatore's family. Because that's so when you hear that scream, that is their realization that they just lost someone. So that's why my mind was going towards who got hit, and I'm scanning looking for who got hit, because everyone's reaction is they don't quite understand what they heard or saw, because they're trying, again, you've never seen this before. If you've never seen it taken, as Craig was saying, what did I see? I'm sorry, Jeff said, what do I see? My brain's got to cognate it, and I got to process it, and now it comes out. And that's what you're seeing. You're kind of seeing shocked. What do I see? What do I do? Do I duck? No one's telling me what to do, because right now they're in big group think mentality. If someone started running, they would have all started running. That's why, interestingly, is want to talk about tribe mentality. When this all kind of settled, no one's telling anyone to evacuate. No one's telling anyone to do anything. That's why you're not seeing anything. But then when Trump stood up and pumped his fist, what did they all start doing?
Cheering.
All the tribe.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
I was just going to add again to show muscle memory training.
He did a great job.
Everyone did a great job, but
Yeah.
LA, 2 police officers were killed during a gun bout, and it was back in the day when they still had revolvers. So you're talking the 70s, early 80s before department switched to pistols. No one likes to clean up brass at the range. So when you get, for a pistol, because the rounds are being ejected, you're picking up rounds on the range. But back with the revolver day, when you had to reload, you could reload it, get the bullets in your pocket, the empty shells, put it in your pocket, and reload your revolver and keep shooting. And this is where muscle memory kicks in. They were trying to put their bullets back in their revolvers when they got shot, because that's how they train. And so from then on, they started practicing constantly, saying, no, when it's time to reload, when you're shooting, you just dump the rounds in the range and you're going to clean it up. So again, this goes to show what the Secret Service do all the time to practice, because they do it, and they do it so quickly. So again, that's just that muscle memory. This has become muscle memory to them. So they're doing exactly what they've been trained. It's ingrained, and their muscles just do it. They're not even really thinking anymore. They just know what they have to do.
And Jeff, you brought up a good point about adrenaline dumps, because what does adrenaline do? It disrupts your fine motor skills. And what that you see is the female agent, once they get them back to the car, she's trying to get her holster back up, and she can't get her gun in her holster. That is that adrenaline interfering with your fine motor skills. That's not incompetence. That is an inability to make your fingers work quite the way that you like. But training is the only way to minimize that, and it's the only way to shorten the 4-step process of making a plan. It's observing, interpreting, making a plan, and then implementing the plan. And that process sometimes take a while, but if you train it, you can get that down in very short times.
That's why one of the things we do, and one of the questions I focus on with all that I do and we do in these situations is, when you ask why questions, well, why did this happen? Why are we doing this? That gets the subjective mind going, and it goes like chaos. You always want to be very specific. Get the cognitive mind engaged as fast as possible. What should we do next? What are we going to do from here? Because you got to get problem solving, because from this point forward, work the problem. There's no SOP for chaos. But the only way to move through chaos is training, and then get your cognitive thinking brain engaged as fast as humanly possible to let that endorphins flood out and adrenaline flood out as fast as possible, which ain't going to happen all that fast. But that training is there, and then asking very cognitive, specific questions helps that brain start engaging to work that problem.
I would say the one thing I would say that and maybe you're planning to get there. My concern is what all the defund the police, all the rewriting of the departments, including our own. I know DOJ already changed it, but changing this, the deadly force policy and making it more restrictive. And you just have to wonder, based on that, could have things been did that alter response in any way? And I think when we look at when it's time to shoot or not shoot, if we've been, especially the last few years, we have so many people who aren't supportive of law enforcement. And they say, again, we see right now, everyone is second guessing everything here. There's criticism going on everywhere here. But when it comes to a shooting like this, there are times when shootings happen that you don't wait, or you try not to wait for the shot to take place. You're engaging first. But right now, you have to wonder about all our law enforcement, where they're afraid of what's going to happen if they pull that trigger. And was somebody in a position that could have taken a shot before this kid took a shot, but because of everything, they're so afraid? Are they waiting for that shot when before? This is a situation where, back in my day, if I had seen him just like going up on the roof with the rifle and there was nothing I could do, I guarantee you, I could articulate exactly why I would do this. But you could engage him even before he got into a shooting position, based on the imminent threat that that person was posing. And you do have to wonder, has enough of our across the board deadly force policies changed where no one's willing to take that and articulate why they would use deadly force to stop that person from getting into a position to fire in the first place.
And it's because people don't cover, and the media doesn't cover, like we've been saying here, anything but the tragic stuff, because we like to consume things that validates our own opinion, like, defund police. If everyone could have just watched Craig say, because this is the majority of people I know in every line of work that is in public service, no one gets to get hurt in front of me. I mean, nothing's been so, that is the most simple message you could possibly understand, that every single person in law enforcement, in the military, the vast majority of everyone I ever worked with that has that mentality, whether it's because you're protecting national security, because you're protecting a protectee, or because you're upholding laws and statutes against drug dealers, gang members. I don't care what it is. No one gets to get hurt in front of me. I love that. That is such a beautiful message. And that's what the majority of us all are compelled by.
And I love the fact that Robin Dreek wrote that down on a Post-it note, which is smart. Old school. He didn't do it on his cell phone. The thing that I noticed, a friend of mine who sadly passed away, who was also a volunteer firefighter out on Long Island, but he was a Fox 5 news photographer. He captured that famous shot of the World Trade Center when you see like this just massive cloud of debris and rubble filling up. I don't know if it was Water Street or one of those streets, as people were just covered in dust. It's an iconic video shot, but he had the wherewithal to keep filming. And it reminded me here, look at this still photographer running from right to left right here. It's kind of crazy right here. Look at this guy right to left, and he's just snapping photos. I mean, I don't think these photographers, I know a lot of these guys, not these personally here, but I'm talking in life. And again, it is what these guys are talking about. It's adrenaline. I don't think they have the courage per se that the guys on this panel have. I would have been scared as hell. I probably would have done something as dumb as that. I can hear my mom yelling at me, even saying that. But the adrenaline's going, and you think you're, impervious to injury in those moments. But that is definitely a false feeling of safety. I just want to give, with this video, and then a couple more things I want to get through. But Craig, I want to give you the last word. If there's anything else you want to say about this video that I know is hard for you to watch, that I've now played 33,000 times.
You asked me earlier if I thought there was any failures, and this isn't a failure, but I'd like to say one of the things that I probably would have done differently, because you brought up the press. One of the first things I would have done before I moved him is I think I would have pushed the press off the riser. That's not a hit on the detail for not doing it, but I think they should have probably moved them off the press riser before they moved him. That's a threat area. That's an elevated area. It's too close for comfort. I probably wouldn't have been allowing that nonsense to happen. Interesting take. And now I'm removing the video, and right back to Craig. So ABC News is reporting this. I wanted to get your take. At least two different sources are telling ABC News that the building where this gunman, I'm not going to say his name today, scrambled onto the roof and opened fire was actually, Craig, the staging area for the local police tactical team doing overwatch of the crowd. Mm-hmm. How would that be possible? I mean, the local police were assigned to this roof, but if that was the staging area, how in the world did this guy get up there? Honestly, that's an excellent question, because all cops are trained to see something and take care of problems. So unless he had hid the gun somehow, had the upper and lower receiver separated before he got close, if he was walking with it out, I can't imagine a police officer would not have said something. That boggles my mind. That is new information to me, and I would be very curious to find out the answer.
And Craig, I know hindsight and is 2020 and, Monday morning quarterbacking, but it just seems so obvious. I mean, if we put this back up, and if you want to answer this question before we get to it, but how does this impact events and rallies going forward? Does it, as I put this up?
I don't think they'll have any choice. Every time there's something like this, you have to adjust your process. And so I imagine they'll have to pull more bodies. I don't know where they will come from. And I don't know if we can get into this a little bit, but manpower is a problem for every police department in the nation. I get that. But the Secret Service has got the highest turnover rate in the federal government, and it's by a factor of 2.5 times. Their turnover rate's about 13% a year. The closest state federal agency to them is about 4.8. And the reason for that is because they ask for anywhere from 30 to 70% travel. You're working nights, weekends, holidays. And why? You can go work for the VAOIG. You can go work for DHS, HSI, never work a night, weekend, holiday again, never travel, and have the exact same pension and the exact same pay.
Yep.
And so their manpower problems are so bad that it's difficult for them to get the bodies they need. So they're going to have to probably start pulling from other agencies even more than they already do to augment their personnel. The only way to solve this problem is manpower. You have to put bodies to hold real estate. That's how you win ground. You don't own it until you have someone standing there. And so the only way to do that is to bring in more personnel that right now don't exist.
Jen Del Rio with a, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to add to what Craig said, and I see it everywhere, and I see it, it's bad as well. No one wants to go into law enforcement anymore. I get asked a lot of times now, hey, would you recommend me to go into law enforcement? And I pause. I don't come out with a solid yes, because, I look back and say, when it comes to having a bad cop, a dirty cop, or dirty law enforcement officer, and the bureaus had them right. Hansen spying for the Russians. Whitey Bulger was flipped at John Connolly, and John Connolly was, a dirty agent. Everyone has them, right? But now, with how law enforcement is more generally perceived, you have a lot of people who don't want to go in, and our leaders. If there's a problem, I say it's not the agents, it's our leaders. And what I mean by that is our leaders have now become risk adverse instead of risk mitigators. And to do the job we do, it's all about mitigating risk and knowing what chances to take, where to take risks, and minimize those risks. And now we have everyone, because our leaders, they become more political than they do become agents. And they look at, well, how will this affect my 6-figure retirement job? What happens if something does go wrong and we don't mitigate the right risk the right way and something happens, right? Because no supervisor wants to hear shots fired, police shot somebody, even if it's a good shoot. They don't want it.
Yep.
And so that affects everything going forward. And I look and say, what I did as an agent, I couldn't do anymore today, and it would kill me because I made my cases. Not because I did anything that was bad, that violated anyone's rights. It's because I took the appropriate risks by mitigating them. And that got me the evidence I needed to prosecute bad people. And if I can't do it now, why would I want to go there? Because I won't be able to do, if you could throw up your sign again for me. If I can't do this, Robert, throw it up about having people hurt, right? If I can't do my job to do this, don't have people hurting from me, why do the job? Especially if you're going to try and put me in jail afterwards for doing that.
And Jeff, to that point, one of the people always ask, when I was running the behavioral team, we strategize great operations across the country. We work with case agents to put amazing operations together, to talk to, recruit, mitigate threats that are the mission. Do you know at least half to 80% of my time working with a case agent was strategizing how they're going to communicate with management to get yes to do what I'm offering them to do. Always strategizing management.
So what I saw in my last job, we've lowered the standards to hire people because we can't get enough people to apply.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yep.
That affects our mission too. So we don't have the manpower, and we've lowered our standards.
And then you don't have money for training, and so the training you need to do to go for if you're Secret Service and you're relying on locals to help you on that outer bubble, there's no training for protection. And inside the Bureau, we have so many collateral duties that when you get assigned, like in New York, and this is back when we had a little bit more money, I get assigned to do a detail out at the tennis matches or the UN General Assembly or any big event that goes on. They say, hey, you're going to be assigned to work with Secret Service and you're doing protective detail. I'm like, what? What do I do? What? I work Russian intelligence officers. Oh yeah, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah. By the way, Jen Del Rio there's a comment from her up a super chat, which I want to get to Craig, but she also in the chat right now has a comment that it's interesting. She says, part of the reason this is all going on, she says, because you heard Jeff and Robin talk about our leaders, because our leaders have no contact with military service anymore, which is kind of true. The last bunch of presidents never served, never were in the military, so they don't have that direct contact. Jen Del Rio, this is a tougher one for you, Craig, and I promise just like one or two more things and we'll wrap it up. But she's talking about the failure of the advance team, or are we giving passes to all? Obviously, facetious there. But first, before you answer the question, how far in advance, if you're able to tell us, does an advance team go in, and what are they doing?
So that depends on the venue. The UN, they start planning the next UN the day after the UN ends. So it's 364 days. But for most sites, temporary sites like that, they start 7 to 10 days in advance. And it depends on the level of protectee, exactly what they're doing, but they are monitoring building the stage. They're monitoring all of they're figuring out the plan for where they're going to put their bodies, how many bodies they're going to get, how they're going to mitigate the threats. If you have some of the specialty teams will be doing their own advanced work at the same time, and they'll coordinate it all through the same individual to make sure it's done right. It is a process, and the higher level the protectee, the much more involved that process becomes.
But I mean, back to Jen Del Rio's question, real quick, Craig, was that a
I think part. The problem is not necessarily a failure of the advance team. Every threat was actually identified. They identified that rooftop as a threat. The problem was how they had to deal with it. So you can't say it was a failure on their part. It is how you apply your manpower. Like I said, you are applying the best solution to the problem relative to the rest of your site. Is it the best use of my manpower to take a cop from over here and put him on that rooftop? In hindsight, we can say, yes, that's accurate now. But at the time, that's much more of whatever that was much more of a threat problem for me. I'm going to put my cop there, and I'm going to assign my team to watch that threat, but they can't do it, like I said, alone. They have a whole vast threat area, and they have to work there to come back to it.
Well, so, Craig, let me ask the question just slightly differently. If you were still an active Secret Service agent and you were at this rally, you would obviously notice this roof right away, I would imagine. Would it make you nervous that you didn't have the manpower to have somebody up there? Is that something that you would have noticed very quickly?
I'll answer this for you very clearly. I've worked events, not this specific venue, but I've worked very similar venues where I had a very similar problem, and I solved it the exact same way. Counter sniper team, that's in your sector. Make sure it's clear. I got it, boss. Moving on. And I have secured it with that solution. You're accepting a small risk with you knowing that it's going to take some time for them to cycle through their sites to come back to a place to observe, but you have to solve it somehow, and that's the only way to solve it.
So, Craig, this question from Tracy, are you distilling it down that it really was a manpower issue, that they just didn't have the resources, the assets to deal with it?
So there's other protectees that are pulling resources away. I mean, when you're doing advanced work even if it's you're doing President of Djibouti visiting the UN, you never feel like you have enough manpower. You're responsible for their life. I am responsible from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed, for them going to the bathroom, eating, everything they do. I have to make sure they don't die. And so you always want more and more and more and more bodies. And that's the job of the higher ups in the service to say, no, you can't have those bodies. And I understand that. That's the fight. This is what I need. This is what you can have. Now I have to work with what I have. And so more bodies would have solved it. And so it's a manpower issue at its core. But even looking at it the day before the shooting, would he have raided more assets? And the answer typically with his level of a protectee is no.
We're going to get final thoughts in 1 second. A quick question just to tease ahead. On Wednesday night, the literal living legend Ann Burgess and retired FBI behavioral analysis unit member Greg McCrary are going to be on to profile an assassin. We found out today, the last bit of news here, that the gunman bought more than 50 rounds right before the shooting. The gun was legally owned by his father. We found that out yesterday. The FBI, Robin Dreek, has now accessed his phone. What are we going to find out about this person, Robin, do you think, in the next coming days? What are we going to know about him?
I think, well, I don't know what they're going to tell us about him, but what they're going to find out is what they're searching is the behavior arc. So you're doing a number of things. They got 2 investigations going simultaneously. One, the assassination attempt, and they're doing a domestic terrorism investigation as well to see if he's linked to anyone else, because, you know, you're not going to prosecute him for what he did, but you're going to see if there's any conspiracy in here whatsoever, as well as investigating on a DT side, domestic terrorism side, also gives you more tools, more resources, and able to do that. So they're going to start on a concentric circle outside of him and see who he's linked to. So who might have known something, who's part of this, not part of this. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to assess culpability of anyone that might have been involved in this. And so I think we're going to see a behavior arc. We're going to see that this individual did not go from 0 to 100. In other words, he was, I can almost 100% guarantee he was not living an easygoing, nice life. He went to work in the mornings. Everyone loved him. Everyone loved getting along with him, because happy people don't do these things. Like we always said in the espionage side, happy people don't commit espionage. That's one of the first clues. And so you're going to see a trail of people there like, it's a little off, and there's going to be a arc of worse behavior and thoughts and opinions that he's probably keeping to himself, maybe because it didn't look like he had a big social media footprint, but he is interacting with people, and you're going to see a trend that's probably escalating with those people. Just my
By
theory.
the way, yeah, if you absolutely hated the show, please subscribe. I like to say that. If you are on the fence, please subscribe. And if you loved it like I did, please subscribe. And you can also support the show on Patreon, and you can support my mother and myself. I just wrote a book about her. She's a child Holocaust survivor. We're in Chicago right now. I joked I'm with my wife's good friend, and whenever they're together, catastrophe strikes. So yesterday I picked the wrong natural disaster. I said, I bet you when we land, there will be an earthquake. Silly me. I should have said tornado, and there are tornado watches. So hopefully little old Joel and his family make it through the night. I will let you know. But time for some final thoughts here. Alice Reiter-Feld, an attorney from Miami. Absolutely fascinating. Great show. I enjoyed it, I think, more than anybody else. Jeff Wood, he is a special type of person, great guy, and also a special agent with the FBI out of Boston. And I just learned today for the very first time, he did protectee work, as my kids are starting to yell, for the Dalai Lama. Not many people can say that. The First Lady of Egypt. Jeff Wood, your final thoughts tonight.
For me, I think we need to stop Monday morning quarterback these kind of things the way it's been done in the press, right? The Secret Service are going to do their own action after review. The investigation, that's their job, the Monday morning quarterback. When you look at how the Secret Service responded, they did a fantastic job. Those agents put their bodies in front of that shooter, protected Trump. There's always lessons learned, but at the end of the day, we need to look at our law enforcement officers and give them the kudos that they deserve, because everything we've talked about tonight, it's, our job is to protect our society. And here you're protecting the president. He was President Trump. Now we're, nominee for the next president. They did their job, and they did it well. We just have some lesson learned and do better.
And I hope that this comment is a joke from Sherry Bussman. Chicago had a 3.4. If this is actually true, I'm driving home tonight.
It is true. My mom and sister live in Chicago, and last night, early this morning, an earthquake hit a little north of Chicago.
Can't wait to tell them this. I'm getting in the minivan. I'm driving.
Do not come to Virginia, Joel.
Yeah, I'm driving. It's not me. It's not me. It's my
Don't
wife.
put that
and her
evil on
friend.
me, Joel.
It's a COE. It's a COE and her friend, and I'm driving home. I don't even want to bring this up, but I'm just going to bring it up because we got Robin to say farewell to here. 100% stage event. We're going to keep hearing this. Robin Dreek. By the way, Robin, most importantly, Robin was with the counterintelligence arm of the FBI. He did it all. But Robin, what is the name of your new book, and when do we find it?
Unbreakable Alliances, a spy recruiter's authoritative guide for cultivating lasting and strong relationships. So that's coming out October 29th, Unbreakable Alliances. It's basically how to create the most important things, because I'll blend this into my final thought, if that's what we're going for now. And that is, another great book I absolutely love is The Courage to be Disliked, another great book. A great quote in that book is, all problems are interpersonal problems. Think about that for a second. Everything we're facing, everything we're talking about here, any lapses in anything came down to an interpersonal problem. A problem with communication, a problem with resources, all these things are interpersonal problems. Because if you have strong, healthy allies and relationships, you can work through it all. And so,
by the way, I'm buying that book tonight for both myself and
you.
Steve Cohen, who is, is your book available for pre-order?
Yes, definitely pre-order now. My publisher and I will love it.
I'm going to do it. But I was
it's all on Barnes and Noble. It's on Amazon. It's all over right now.
I'm going to find it. I'm going to buy it tonight for you, Robin. And I'm also going to buy The Courage to be Disliked. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's another good book. Along with The Comfort Crisis, that's another good one.
Steve Cohen and I, my right-hand man in this, we're always, we're afraid to not be liked. And I always tell him we got to toughen up. So I'm going to, that's a title of a book my dad would absolutely love. May he rest in peace, my father.
Yeah, part of that courage also is the courage to be average, because most of us are.
There we go. And look at this. Bundy Data's got Ann Burgess's book. She's coming on the show. She is the living legend, profiling an assassin. It was amazing to meet special agent with the Secret Service, Craig Fraser, who served from 2001 through 2023. He has protected every president this country has had, from President Ford through President Biden. By the way, I met President Ford. I was a producer at MSNBC in the mid-90s. There was a big thing in Philadelphia, and I got on the elevator last second. It was him and his Secret Service detail. And I looked up, and I couldn't believe it. And I said, Mr. President. And back then, there were no cell phones, so I had a little yellow Kodak thing. Would you mind if I took your picture? And he said, if you don't mind your camera lens breaking, son. And I said, that's what he said to me. Very cool moment in my life, but this was the life that Craig lived. Craig, I hope you'll come back on the show. It was amazing to get your insight on all this. Thank you all for your service. Craig, your final thoughts as we go out here tonight.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed to be here. This discussion is important. This country has to move forward, and the Secret Service has to move forward. And I look forward to the information coming out of the investigation to come. And I think the Secret Service will come back stronger, and I think the country will come back stronger. There's a lot of questions to be answered. I know a lot of people have them, but they're all going to be answered. And I got to tell you, to this day, I am proud of my service with the Secret Service, and I think they've done an outstanding job and will continue to do so in the future.
And this is why I end every show. Love you, America, with the Star Spangled Banner. It is the best country on earth, no matter what anybody thinks. And let's all unite, not divide. It's the only way to go. Guys, stick around for 1 second. Tomorrow, I think we're going to bring you behind the scenes, by the way, real quick, of the book signing. Bookseller in Chicago, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Wednesday, Profiling an Assassin. And Thursday, a special Dan Markel retrospective, if the COE can get it done, between the earthquake, the tornado, and giving the kids a bath right now. Love you all. Guys, stick around a second.